Everyone, hello. The Dead Lawyer Society here again, and today we gonna discuss probably the most serious topic you can imagine. We gonna speak about the humor in the courtroom. Somehow, I still don't understand how we found Judge Mayne from California, and today we're gonna speak with him uh, about American humor in the American courts. Judge Mayne, thank you for being here.
I am delighted to be here.
Great. Can you? But let's begin from from the funny side. We will move on to the serious side a little bit later. But now, can you just give a few words about what you do as a judge?
Sure,
What cases you usually hear?
sure. So I am the way it works here is that I'm a superior court judge. So I can be assigned to do anything anywhere. But what I've been assigned to since I've become a judge is civil cases. That's cases generally about money or property. Before I became a judge, I was a prosecutor, so I'm very familiar with the criminal justice system. But I have been doing civil cases now for 5 years. I started 5 years ago.
You start. Uh, you started as a judge 5 years ago.
I did. I was before that I was a prosecutor for 20 years, and
Mhm.
before that I was a newspaper reporter.
Good. And tell us a little bit about the court. How big is it? How many judges? What cases are the most popular in this court?
Sure. So we have we're in a county. So there's in the United States we have both federal courts and we have state courts. And the state courts are I'm paid by the state. The counties, though, they have we have our own courthouse. So we have about 540,000, maybe 550,000 people in the county, somewhere around there. We have about 25 judges at any one time. Most of those judges are assigned to criminal. Most of our cases are criminal cases. We also have a family law unit, which is the second largest. We have the civil unit. There are four of us. We handle all of the civil cases in the county. And then there's the juvenile. And right now there's one juvenile judge. We usually have one or two juvenile judge to deal with both dependency, what we call dependency issues, and justice issues where people under 18 might be committing crimes. And we're trying to solve those problems. So those are kind of the units. And then in my courtroom, what I have I have a wide variety of different cases. We have medical malpractice, we have car crashes, we have property disputes. We also have, let's see, I don't know if I covered medical malpractice, but that's one of the things we see. And anything where somebody thinks that they have been wronged and they want money, or if they believe that there's property that they are entitled to, or they want specific performance of something, that's going to come to me. I also occasionally have environmental cases, and also just as I am the primary person for what we call civil harassment restraining orders. That's if you and your neighbor get in a dispute and they think there should be some order issued to make whatever is going on stop.
Can you make a restraint order to stop doing jokes?
So not usually, because basically it has to be a pattern of harassment. So, like, if it's just annoying behavior, that's not going to be enough. Like,
Just not funny. Just not
just
funny jokes.
yeah, no,
They're quite
no,
annoying.
right, right. So and if you just have a not funny joke, that's not going to be good enough. You're going to need to have a little more.
I think it'd be helpful if we divide the conversation in two parts. The first part, when you decide if the joke is funny. I mean, when you hear the joke from the parties, from the lawyers in the courtroom, and the second part, when when you generate jokes and someone
Okay.
decides if they're funny or not. So so what I did, I found as many papers as possible about humor in law, and I suggest you to discuss those like key points. So let's begin from lawyers.
Mhm.
Richard Harris. I don't know if this guy is popular in the US, but in Ukraine there were a couple of books, and many lawyers like myself, we were reading and we were preparing like our speeches based on Richard Harris books. And I remember he had like the separate part in the book which was called the humor in the courtroom. So I needed to find this book, and I needed to find what exactly he was saying. And he was saying in one sentence the following: that humor is the most powerful tool for lawyer, but if the joke is appropriate. What's your vision of appropriateness of jokes in the courtroom as the main acceptor of the joke?
So there are two things that you can have. There's kind of the light, sort of a touch of humor. When I was an attorney and I had a jury trial, if you could say something that would, because of the ridiculousness of the other side, and you could get a juror to go like this.
Was the appropriateness of jokes in the courtroom. What are the like the boundaries, or as we love to say in Ukraine, what are the red lines for appropriateness of the joke in the courtroom from the lawyer?
Right, and we were talking just about the lawyers. So lawyers aren't going to make jokes very often. When I was a lawyer, you're not going to make an actual like joke as a rule, because, and this goes to where the judges are too. Like if you drop something, or anytime there's some kind of like social awkwardness and you want to play that off a little bit, then you're going to do that. That's fine. Um, but the things that the effective use of humor by lawyers is generally just kind of pointing out the absurdity of the other side, and you can do that without a joke. You can do that with a kind of a pointy question. You can do that. You can do that by saying things that somebody might find amusing, but the target is not like in a joke. You'd like people to laugh. That's not generally the target of what I think ought to be doing as a lawyer. Um, you you want to make sure that, because if you have jurors there, you have a judge there, you have the other side there, you have parties there. In a criminal case, somebody's freedom is at stake. In a civil case, these cases are important to people. So, like, that does not mean that there's no humor at all. It doesn't mean there isn't something that's going to happen, where you can say something to kind of that might cause somebody kind of tickle that funny bone just a little bit. But jokes, just straight up jokes, I don't think so. It's just generally not a thing. It's not a thing that good lawyers that I see good lawyers do, and it's not a thing that happens. It's not a thing that I see, I think.
But when you see, can the
Oh,
joke change your opinion?
so if you people don't generally. So what I have right now in my courtroom, I have a lot of civil cases and I have a lot of what's called law in motion, where people are saying, "Hey, you should dismiss this case, or you should order them to do something." And so people come in and they tell me these things. I've never had I think a persuasive joke. I have had sometimes people will say, "Look, this is what their position would lead to, and that's an absurd end point." That's a reasonable line of argument, but you're generally not trying to get the judge to smile. You might be trying to get them to frown at the other side, but you're not generally trying to get the judge to smile.
Let's move to another scientific piece. Peter N. Mayer, Comedy in the Courtroom, 2016. Humor can humanize a lawyer before the jury, but it is risky with judges. Judges control tone, and lawyers' humor may be seen as disrespectful. How true is this?
So I think this is a really excellent point, that judges do set the tone in a courtroom. Any courtroom you walk in, judges, as it happens, are people. You're going to have judges who are going to set an extremely formal tone. You'll have judges who set a less formal tone. You'll have judges who set even maybe a little lighter tone. And so, like, sometimes people will, let's say in jury selection, if you're an attorney, you might make a light, humorous statement if you've maybe missaid something, or hey, I didn't ask the right question there. It's lucky my profession doesn't require me to know a lot of words. Just something quick if you've stumbled over something. But yeah, you're not the comedian. You do want to make sure that you are respectful to all of the people, not just the judge, but also everybody else here. If you're in a trial and you've got American system, we've got 12 jurors sitting there trying to figure out what to do, and your joke appears disrespectful to the other side, that's going to make some of them irritated at you, and that's probably a bad idea.
When I was a paralegal 20 years ago, I remember then in the court hearing, the lawyer whom I was helping, he was reading many pages of the motion with that boring legal language, and we were trying to declare the contract null and void, and he was using maybe 5 or 7 different arguments why the contract needs to be invalidated, and the other party, just sitting, not standing, he just said, "Are you going to read all the civil code now?" And that was so funny, even for me and for judge, and the judge started laughing, and at the end of the day we lost that case. I think that joke was unintentional. I think that he didn't prepare the joke, but he didn't stop himself from saying the joke. So maybe you can give like a recommendation for the lawyers in the court. If you have a joke which unintentionally came into your mind, do you need to stop yourself from saying the joke, or just be free to say the joke?
So you have to kind of read the room there, right? And so the question there is, you have something there where somebody is not using time. Probably what I would do in that situation is just is when somebody's like reading things like that, as a judge, I will stop people from reading things, and that is one of my pet peeves, because I am able to read. That is one of the things that I'm able to do that got me this job. So I can see in a situation where you have kind of an absurdist situation, you have to make a call there, and it sounds there that the person was successful in that. I probably would choose something different, but there's kind of an old saying that if you can get somebody to see the absurdity of the situation, one big laugh may be worth more than 100 words. But you just have to be really careful. You have to know your audience, because if you miss as a lawyer in trying to be funny, that's a bad miss. And so you just have to be very careful.
Now I want to move to like so-called judge-made humor, from
Sure.
lawyers-made humor, because surprisingly, there's more papers on that than on lawyers' humor.
I
Somehow.
have read some of those papers.
Or maybe you even wrote one of them, or
I
not.
don't think so. No.
Okay. But before we move in that direction,
Mhm.
quite recently, if I'm not mistaken, it was last week. There was a situation in the Supreme Court of Ukraine
Mhm.
when the judge said to the party, "This is my court, and these are my rules," which you do not usually hear in the Ukrainian court. But based on my understanding of the US legal system, which I've taken from the court movies, this is the usual thing for the judge in the US to name the court my court. Is that correct?
So you might use slightly different language, but to a great extent, yes. That is one of the things. I once had a discussion with an attorney, and I interrupted, and I've said probably once every, I don't know, year, maybe once a year, I have a something where I interrupt somebody and then they interrupt me, and the rules are different. I tell them straight up, it's not an equivalent situation. I am allowed to interrupt you. You are not allowed to interrupt me. That's the rule, and so there is some assertion of control. Judges kind of have to do that. If we do not, otherwise the court can get away from you. And sometimes the court needs very specific information. We need to stress to people, look, the information that I need from you now is this. I know you want to tell me the other thing. I'm going to let you do that, but not right now. Right now, what I need is the information that I am asking you for. Um, and so sometimes, yeah, some words like that may become necessary. Now, you don't want to exert control in that fashion. You don't want to, you know, be somebody like it looks like you're just trying to sort of show off the power that you have. That's no good. But on the other hand, you also can't let the courtroom situation get away from you. And so some statement like, look, this is, I am the judge. I don't use the words, this is my courtroom, but I will say, look, this is how this works. I am the judge. I have control over what happens next. I'm going to need you to do the things that I am asking you to do at this point. And so that's not that to me. What the judge said in Ukraine doesn't sound wrong from an American perspective. Now, obviously, I'm not in Ukraine. I don't know the legal culture. I don't know some of the other things that would be important to know. But I would say in the United States, if a judge said that, it would not raise any hackles. It would just be a usual thing that somebody might say in a situation where they felt they needed to seize control of the situation, or the situation was degrading.
So what you are saying is that joke may be the signal to the party that the party is about to crossing the line, and the next step will be the fine, right?
Sometimes, and you usually won't. That's not really a joke. That's more of a hey, you are in a spot where you do not want to be. When you have, if you're making a joke at somebody's expense, because I don't view that as a joke. If you say this is my courtroom, I am running the courtroom. That if somebody's laughing at that in a U.S. courtroom, they have made a bad error. That would be that is not the target, I think, of what the judge would be trying to do. It would seem to me that the judge would be trying to say, "Hey, we're going to do this the way that I want to do it," and the reality is that there are reasons I'm doing this, but also, even if my reasons are wrong, at some point you need to be respectful to what the court wants to do at this point.
Maybe you can list the situations when the parties or the lawyers in the courtroom deserved a joke. So what for me, when the party when the party is reading the motion, or when the party is, I don't know, like too, um, I don't know what is English for pathos. Is this like Greek language, a Greek word like pathos? When it's like too complicated, like too many references to Roman law. So that person deserves the joke. Are there other like examples when the party deserves a joke from you, and you sit and you understand that I must like make a joke about that?
So, not a joke, but like a control move, I think is what that is. So if you're just wandering off to where you are, like counsel, counsel, I understand what you're telling me, but that is not the thing that I need to know right now. Um, you have, uh, and I come from a spot. Um, when I got this job, about 6 months after I got the job, one of the attorneys who I had both opposed before and who came in and appeared in front of me just said, I didn't think you would ever become a judge because you're too funny to be a judge. And just sort of that statement that, look, judge is not where you make funny comments. That's not the goal of the exercise. That was kind of accurate. And then he realized about 2 seconds afterwards that I might take that as being disrespectful of me, but I did not. It was just a situation where he's saying, "Hey, you are clearly alive and you can be very funny." Um, but as a general rule, those sort of courtroom control mechanisms are not going to be designed to be funny. And sometimes they might be a little funny from the outside because it's an absurd situation, or people are making decisions that are not good decisions in court. But it's not really a joke, as I would understand it in America. It would not be would not be a good means to attempt to exert control over the situation.
Let's continue reading what scholars say about the humor, because we need to trust them. They're serious guys. They receive money for that. So Tanya Jacobi, taking laughter seriously at the court, 2019. Tonya says that humor works as a signal of dominance, which is quite obvious. But she says that often humor predicts the outcome of the case. And her argument is when the judge is making jokes on the particular party, then this party usually loses the case.
That makes sense to me, because if you are if you are pointing out the absurdities of the argument, hey, somebody might say, look, I'm entitled to this property. And sometimes that might lead to an argument that, okay, if anybody makes any claim, are they entitled to the property? Or you ask these hypothetical questions of where does your situation lead? I know that the studies in the United States Supreme Court are that if the judges are making humorous statements about, if the justices are making humorous statements about your case, that's a really bad sign for you. So I do think that, just as a matter of fact, that seems accurate to me. If the judge seems to be poking at your case a little bit, in maybe just a lightly humorous way, that probably doesn't end great for you. That's probably the right answer.
Do you consider yourself a funny judge?
No, I do not. I am a funny person, but I am not a funny judge. It is really important. It is so important not to be the funny judge. The funny judge, because here's one of the other problems, right? You have the power dynamic is disparate. It is different. And if anybody thinks you are telling a joke, they will laugh. It does not matter if your joke is funny or not. There are famous stories of federal judges who would tell like half a joke and then wait for the laughs and get the laughs. I don't know if all those stories are true, but it is a situation in which like you really do not want to be the funny judge. You can be the human judge. You can be the, hey, that guy is alive and sounds maybe different than other judges. That's okay. But if you are the funny judge, I think you are making a mistake. I think that's just straight up a mistake. If your rep is the funny judge, that's bad. Also, if you are a judge, from a judge point of view, you might think you are just so funny because everyone laughs at your jokes. There's a reason they're laughing at your jokes. It might not be that you're that funny.
You were the prosecutor for 20 years, and only 5 years you were the judge. Which of your roles had more room for jokes?
So definitely prosecutor. I think the one thing is that as a prosecutor, if you are talking to the defense attorneys, you're talking to these people. We're talking about a serious business. We're talking about people's freedom, about their lives. Are they good for it? And so, like, I would occasionally make little cracks to the defense attorneys. I'm not trying to hurt their feelings. We're just like, hey, you have a problem here. But I don't do that with the lawyers now. So that just outside of court, you can be funnier. Like, this doesn't seem like it's going to go well for you, or somebody might, and certainly people would poke back, and it's part of the deal. I'd be dealing with these attorneys every day, so you're going to end up with some of that back and forth, ideally a little friendly banter. And then also in court, you might point out the absurdity of something. I had a few times in jury trials. I never was looking. I do it with a straight face. You never look like you're trying to tell a joke, because that's a failure mode. But you might say something that's like, okay, and hey, if you think that story is reasonable, then sure. And then you outline the story. If you think that's reasonable, hey, you should acquit him. And sometimes the jurors do a little bit of this, and if that happens, you won the case. As a judge, there's just not as much room for that, because again, you are setting a tone. You want to make sure that the lawyers, any jurors, anybody who's in the audience, even your own staff, everybody who's here, it is something that people need to understand what a courtroom situation is about. So that's I don't think there's a lot of room for judges to be funny. Now, every once in a while, like I have allergies, and I will sometimes sneeze like a few times in a row. And if I do that, that becomes very awkward. Everybody, if there's a jury sitting there, they'll kind of look up like, what happens next? Why is the judge sneezing 4 times in a row? I've not seen anything like that. And so I will say something like, that's not a record. And that kind of lowers the tension. So there is a place for little things that lighten the mood, but it's you still don't want to be the funny judge.
So when you were the prosecutor and you stood before the court, probably you faced the situations when the judge would like make a joke of you, or making something like the joke that is supposed to threaten you or your position. And that if you respond with a joke, with another joke, there's the huge risk of being misinterpreted, or lose the case, or you even lose the case. So what you did in that situation?
So if I thought a judge was poking at me, and that did happen, certainly judges would say like, hey, what are you doing here? Never would respond to any attempts at judicial humor with humor. That's just not the right answer. The right answer is to because then you're just kind of taking the trip down, and the person who loses that is the lawyer. So that's no good. I know that. Yeah, so I don't think that's a good idea. I don't. And remember, you're not in a you're not in a joke contest. You're not in a throwdown there. You're trying to assist your client in their case. You're trying to help your client to get a good result in your case. And there in prosecution there are other considerations. You want to do the right thing. Make sure if the person didn't do it, then you definitely want them to go home. So yeah, I'm not going to get into an attempt at humor, because also judges who are trying to be funny, they will always think that they are funny and other people are less funny. So it's kind of the disadvantage.
I'm thinking about the public cases. By public cases, I mean the cases which are really interesting to the public, and they have a lot of attention from mass media, and then parts of the hearing are posted on YouTube, or maybe even the court hearing is shown online. Does that somehow changes the behavior of the judge? Does judge want to be more humane, and that's why he or she is trying to joke more than in the normal court hearing?
So I don't know if that happens to people, but I think that's a mistake. You do not. You're not the star of a reality show as a judge. I mean, some judges are, some reality shows are, but this is not a reality show. It's it's real life with stakes and everything else. And if you have a public case, if you have a high press case, and I've dealt with some very high press cases as a prosecutor. I dealt with some certainly reasonable press cases as a judge. But you don't want to be the star of that show as a judge for sure. This is you're the referee. You're not the quarterback. Quarterback is probably the wrong term for Ukraine, but
Definitely.
you get the you're not the person who's in charge of the team. You are just calling things. You are the referee. Referee shouldn't be the star of the show.
Good. Let's move on. Now, M. Rudolph, Judicial Humor, The Laughing Matter, 1989. He says that judicial humor threatens impartiality and dignity of the court. This guy is so critical. Jokes can reveal bias, trivialize serious matters, and undermine public trust. This is what he says.
Well, and I think I think certainly some of that can be true, and that's why judges have to be super cautious about this. I have a book in California. We have a guy, Mr. Rothman. He did a book on the and now other people work on it, but basically on judicial conduct. And one of the things that he talks about is, number one, all of the judges who have gotten in trouble for all of the things. And number two, how do you avoid that as a judge? And part of that is taking a step back. But when some jokes, we've had, there have been judges who have made jokes based on whether people who are, depending on whether they're male or female or what ethnicity they are. Like, if you do that, you're going to get in trouble and you're doing a bad job. Don't do that. Other jokes certainly carry a substantial amount of risk. And I think judges should be extremely cautious, because it is an issue about both the dignity of the court and how are the people who are involved in this going to feel? If they think you're making fun of them, that's no good. So you have to be really cautious about that. I think there's a lot to be said about. I think that's just correct, that you have to be extremely careful as a judge that your wish to be humorous, what's the purpose of that? Why are you doing that? If you're doing that to sort of gently take maybe the tone down a little bit, or to do something else that is designed to assist everyone, then that might be okay in limited amounts. If you're doing it to exert your control or to show how funny you are, that's probably a mistake.
Let's make a little bit of more theory. The Cocho and Little comedy collides with the Courtroom 2019. This author distinguishes different types of humor, like self-deprecating, aggressive, ironic, and absurd. And he says that each type shows each type of the humor can escalate or de-escalate what is happening in the courtroom. And when we discussed the boundaries for the behavior of the litigants in the courtroom, so probably this is the case. So when someone is close to crossing the line of what he's doing in the court, and you are making like the shoot in the air for like making a joke before imposing the fine. And there are situations when if we're reading this author rightfully, then there are situations when we otherwise tries to like escalate the situation. Did that ever happen when you try to escalate the situation in the court with the help of absurd jokes, or I don't know, irony, which are not actually jokes?
Yeah, right. So I think that the little slight things are where you might, it might be something gentle, like a counsel, just tone there, or like if I have a witness. Sometimes we have witnesses. Sometimes we have expert witnesses, highly paid expert witnesses, who do not want to answer the questions, and so then I'll let that go for a little bit, but also have a finite amount of time to finish cases. So sometimes I will say something to the witness, like, "Hey, it would be helpful if you would answer the questions rather than rate them." The witness might say, "Well, that's the wrong question." Well, that's just not how court works. I'm not going to say that's not how court works, but I am going to say something like, "Hey, it'll help us out, and this will go faster." And that's a little, maybe it's a gentle nudge. So those kinds of nudges, and I think the difference between escalating and de-escalating, I think that makes an excellent point. There are situations, and like a little bit of self-deprecating humor to de-escalate. Like if I've said something wrong, or if and sometimes counsel make an excellent point where, and I'll say something maybe lightly, very lightly self-deprecating that just, okay, or say, "Hey, that's a good point." One of the things I like to do in my arguments about motions in the morning is when people ask for hearings, to say that I've already written up something. I give them an opportunity to be heard, and they say, "Hey, we think you're wrong." So I'll start off by just saying, "Hey, all right, counsel, so why don't you tell me why you think I'm wrong about this?" And that just gives them kind of an opening to say, "Yeah, you're wrong because of this, this, and this." So you have these sort of tonal clues, whether it's humor or something else, that gives counsel an opportunity to know this is, it's not going to hurt my feelings if you tell me you think I've gotten it wrong. So the question then is the humor really trying to get us to a place where, okay, we're de-escalated, or are you trying to use the humor to poke at somebody and try to escalate it? I think that's an excellent point.
There are two more papers to discuss. The next one is L.K. Hori, Bonds, Mods, Buffoonery, and Bench, 2012. This author says she's analyzing the humor in the written humor, so the humor in the court orders. Have you? So she distinguishes wit and buffoonery, and but I want to ask you: have you ever read a really good joke that would not threaten the person, but the joke that, or maybe like humor probably is more like broad
Sure.
definition. So humor that helped to understand what the quote mean, or the uh, humorous explanation of complicated laws, which actually helped the parties to understand what exactly the law means.
I
Have you found that in the orders?
I think I have read some things where, like, especially like where the court is trying to explain, look, I don't know what you put me in a situation that's a very unusual situation. And so they'll try to use either an analogy, or they'll go through and say, like, that can't be how this works. And they'll do it maybe with a lighter touch, as we talked about the escalation and de-escalation, because they don't, the court might not want to say, really, what have you done here in exactly those words. So a lot of time there's a little bit of a light step there, and I think sometimes that can be helpful. As part of my job, I am part of what's called an appellate panel. So there are there's very low level appeals that I handle with my fellow panelists. And in exactly one of those cases, I put in just one um, very light attempt at, I'd say, wit. And I don't try to be too clever in these because it's not what really people want, and it's not usually the right thing to do. But if somebody's done something absurd or made a claim that's absurd, then a little light touch there, I'm okay with that. I do think I do think you have to be super careful because, again, judges get the impression that they're way funnier than they are because of the way that things work.
Now we have the final paper to discuss, and I remember that you wanted to share with us a couple of stories which you personally had in the court. So then we will have room for that. So the final one is Laura Little, Regulating Funny, Humor in the Law, 2009. It's a little bit of psychology, which I like very much, and she says that why humor is so powerful, because humor can bypass the rational filters. So when you want to influence someone, not in direct way, there are many biases which you can play with, and humor is one of them. So it's the shortcut to the judge when you make a joke on the other party. Then it's powerful because it like bypasses the filters of our rationality. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think that that's one of the. So you have to be super careful, right? Because you don't want to give offense. But I do think that when you say wry humor, like just like it's something dry, it's not trying to get a laugh. It might maybe just a little upturn of the smile. But you're just trying to point out that, hey, that cannot work that way. If you are able to do that, again, if you fail at that, that's no good. But I absolutely agree that humor can bypass certain other processes, mental processes, and oh no, that's foolishness. What exactly? That kind of argument absolutely can be successful. You just have to be super careful with it.
I'm the guy who has not very funny jokes, and but they're funny for me. And sometimes I think, wow, that was really good, really good. And also, I notice those kind of absurd or irony when I hear that, and I think, well, yeah, that was nobody is laughing, but I don't laugh as well, but I do like that. Yeah, that was okay. Did you notice something like that when the party in the court says something really smart and funny, like not funny in the way it is funny that you need to laugh, but funny in the way that it is like something changes in your brain, like the way your brain usually think about things, and you think, yeah, that was good, and you say, and you show to the party like, yeah, that was okay.
Yeah, I tried to think about that before. If I had a lawyer persuade me um, with that kind of thing, and I'm not sure that I have. It does seem possible. It doesn't seem like it's so far out of range that it couldn't have happened. And it may be that I've just forgotten it. I have a lot of cases, and sometimes I may have forgotten. But usually there is something where there's a turn of the phrase. And I don't remember a specific one, but like, hey, if there are the arguments that, look, judge, if this is actually your position, then what does that lead to? And here's an absurd result that answer could lead to. And you see that sometimes in the motions where they say, look, if that's the rule, then there's no case at all that we could get summary judgment on that can't possibly be right. What more do you want from us? So I don't remember a specific instance, but I would just caution people to be just very, very careful. Again, failed humor is much worse than not using something humorous that might work a little bit. I do agree with what you were saying earlier, though, that you can kind of push through certain barriers with humor, and that was always a little light humor can sometimes assist. So, yeah, I don't have a good example for you.
What humor usually says to you when the party tries to joke, and when the joke is really funny for you? No one is smiling, but you like understand the joke. What does that says to you? Because I read a lot of things that humor shows that the person is smart, and the more if the joke is not funny but it's smart, then the person seems to be smart. So, but I do not always agree to that. I don't think of myself as smart person, and I don't think of many of persons who are trying to make jokes that they're smart. But what you usually think? What the first thing you think when someone is trying to make a joke?
So usually probably. I don't get a lot of efforts at jokes or humor. I don't get a lot of those. Every once in a while, in the things where people are unrepresented and they come in, they might want to say something that they think is funny. That doesn't usually succeed. That's part of the reason you got here, is that you've made some judgment calls that maybe weren't ideal. I don't have, there's just not a lot of examples, like just day by day, every day. I'll go months and months without anybody really trying anything that's, legitimately an attempt at humor. And so I don't see very much of it. And I would guess that usually it's a bad idea. I'm sure that it's not always a bad idea. And the other thing is, are you trying to, again, what are you trying to accomplish? You're trying to explain that, okay, so yeah, I understand the court's position. What are you trying to accomplish there? So I'm not usually favorably impressed by people who are going to come in and be funny in the court. Now, there are other places, like I'm part of something called the Inns of Court, and it's lawyers and judges, and they do skits, and the skits are at least allegedly funny, and some of the skits are actually funny, and that's fine. That's good. That means that you're trying to do something, and you're trying to entertain people, and good for you. And we're allowed to do that, within certain limits. we're allowed to have that humor outside of the courtroom, and the courtroom is not something where it's not a no humans allowed zone. People are going to be human. People are going to say things, but usually, if you're trying to persuade a judge, you want to be careful. If you've got a really good turn of the phrase that's going to end this, then okay, I get that. If you're Go ahead.
Sorry for interruption, but as a person, so outside the courtroom, as a John R. Mayne, don't you think that lawyers are funny?
I think a lot of lawyers are funny. Not all lawyers are funny, but some lawyers are very funny.
What makes us funny?
So I think that we are skilled with words. Typically, the people who are lawyers, people who get into the law, if you're not skilled with words, this is not a good profession for you. The other thing is lawyers, almost no matter what you're doing, you're going to have a lot of exposure to people and situations that are kind of silly. And so you're going to, maybe your client has a position and you have to explain to them that is not going to work. I'm sorry, but your brother-in-law told you that would work? Is he a doctor too? How does this work? I am telling you that is not how this works. And so you have to be used to dealing with a wide variety of people and a wide variety of language. And also, there's a sort of logical analysis that goes on with judges. And so you have the opportunity as a lawyer or a judge when you're doing all this to use wordplay, to do other things in your regular life. And so I absolutely do think that lawyers, a lot of lawyers are genuinely funny. Not all lawyers. I think there are some judges who are genuinely funny. But the key point is that there's no way to know that as a judge, because the fact that people are laughing at your jokes doesn't mean anything. There are judges who would call people into chambers and they thought they were funny. And okay, that's not you're not gonna find out that way. There's no way to find out if you are actually funny. So maybe you should be careful, even in your even if you're backstage, even if you're not in front of everybody.
Your stories. You told that you have a couple of prepared stories.
Let's see. Well, I think I have one like tiny story, and it was just a small thing, and it was just the use of. So basically, I was on the appellate panel. The case is now completed. But there was an issue with an expert who said that you couldn't have any amount of iodine on your skin because it was a heavy metal poison. And I just made a small joke, which was, it is possible that the trial judge took that statement with a grain of salt. And so this joke needs more explaining, just because I know Ukraine salt is not all iodized, but in the United States, vast majority of salt has iodine in it. So it's hard to claim that you can't have any amount of iodine in your system. And that doesn't make any sense. So it's a small thing. I had, when I was an attorney and I would go back and forth with people, sometimes I would be a little sharp with people, or I'd say, they would say, well, my impression of the law is this. And I would say, is that related to the actual law or something like that, where you go back and forth a little bit. But the other part of it was that in a lot of these cases, I spent a lot of time both here and in my former job doing serious things with serious people. And so the fact that one of the stories that I've already told is the lawyer who thought I was too funny to be a judge. And I took that in the way it was intended. I think the key points are that you're not doing things at the expenses of the litigants. And I've told my sneezing story, so I've got that. But yeah, I just think that when we spend our lives and people think of me as a humorous person outside of this, but inside the courtroom, there's not a lot of it, because you just cannot be the funny judge.
Well, I do hope that our today's conversation would stop someone from saying jokes. So maybe during watching this piece, someone was preparing the speech in the court and decided whether or not to put the jokes in it. So let's hope this person will remove the joke immediately.
I think you have a very directed thing for this. I think you're aiming it at one of your friends. Am I right?
No.
Okay, good.
Well, our Dead Lawyer Society community is built around, like, I don't know, like the black humor, but like the humor which many people do not want to become the part of our community, because the level of humor is even hard to like estimate.
I,
It's
I I can understand that, given the circumstances. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I do think that sort of gallows humor. Um, I think there's a place for it, and as far as I think I've been in different localized situations where I've heard the gallows humor, and I've committed the gallows humor, and that's what we call it here. Maybe that's the wrong term, but the dark humor of,
Mhm.
hey, this is the actual situation that we are in. We're going to make a joke out of it, whatever it is, and I appreciate that. So the question is just what's your time, place, and manner when you are with your friends and with your people. That's probably extremely appropriate. If you're going into court, then you have to be more careful.
That's right. Thank you, Judge Mayne. Thank you so much for being with us today. And our listeners, our viewers, thank you as well. So, yeah, bye for now.
Thank you, Dima. Appreciate it.
Yeah.